Hello, everyone, and welcome to Spiritual Stuff and Fluff. And I'm so pleased and honored to have my friend Barb Kane, who is from Detroit in Michigan, and she's a transformational coach. Now, when people talk about the spiritual, a lot of people have different views on what the spiritual is, but that's why we're going to be talking to Barb today to see what her views, insights are on spirituality, spiritual growth, because we've all had some funny instances as well. And I know that Barb has had some really challenging times in her life. And whether Barb realizes it or not, I am so interested to hear your story, Bob, because I love hearing about people's journeys. I love
Yes.
hearing about, because we all have skin, we all have bones, we all have eyes, we all have ears, but we all have a different journey, we all have a different perspective on it. And I love to hear different perspectives. So one thing I'm curious to know, Bob, is, I know that you like me, you believe in God. I know that, you know that there's a universally higher power, but I can honestly say with myself, there's been a couple of times where I can think of where I fell out with God.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm pleased that I found my way back to God, because I do
Absolutely.
believe that that makes a difference. So
Definitely.
what's your story, Bob? What's been your challenging times? What's been your turning points? You tell me.
Oh my goodness, there's so many. You
Hmm.
know, this has a little funny turn to it, so I'm going to start. This is the beginning, kind of, sort of, but I was brought up in a Catholic family.
Hmm.
In fact, my oldest brother, he's a twin, and he's a priest, a Catholic priest. And when I was smaller, he was over in the Pine Missionaries in Papua New Guinea.
Yeah, yeah.
And he used to, that countryside over there, Elaine, is so beautiful. Wow.
Mhm.
And he got over there only 5 years after they stopped headhunting. So they were pretty primitive.
Oh,
In
very.
fact, they were learning one, two, threes, ABCs by taking mud and writing on each other's backs.
Really?
That's how primitive.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yes. And so by the time he was over there, I think it was 8 or 10 years, he
Hmm.
was helping, he was like the do all tell all. So he was helping build schools, hospitals, a bank. And he was the banker too until that was built. They'd come to where he was living
Yeah, yeah.
and he'd do the banking for them. And it was just so primitive. And whenever he'd have to go to the mainland, he'd have to get in the dinghy, they called it. And, it was really rough seas most of the time. And he said the way they got tossed and turned in that dinghy many times, he prayed to the Lord, please protect us,
Mhm.
And
Was he
he said, you
frightened?
talk about seasickness.
Uh-huh.
Oh yes, and when as the bank grew, he actually was held up at gunpoint, and when he told that story, you talk about communicating fear. I mean, the story was so descriptive, and whew, I felt his fear through that
Oh, wow.
story. It
Yeah.
was it was awful. And so um anyways, to go on with that story back here at home, I was going through catechism, which was, an after school program, and you would learn about the Bible and stuff like that. Well, the priest that was teaching it, of course, my brother being a priest, and he knew that, he would pick on me and pick on me and pick on me. And, I would freeze because after he picked on me so much, I just didn't even want to answer anymore. You know what I mean? Because
And
even if I gave him the right answer, it was
and
not good enough.
and to be fair, just because you see your brother was a priest doesn't mean to say that you done all the studying that your brother did.
Right, exactly. And he would always advance what he expected from me,
Oh,
which wasn't fair, right?
oh no, definitely not.
And even the other people in the class were like, oh, come on, because, none of us really wanted to be there, number one. And, just teach us what we have to learn to pass the exam so we can
Yeah,
do our confirmation,
yeah.
you all that kind of stuff. We were kids. So that was one story that I just will never forget. And I'll tell you one more. When he was home on, they always got a certain time to come home,
Yeah, yeah.
and another priest and take their place. And I'll never forget this. And I have never yawned loudly again. So he rode a motorcycle, and I rode on the back, and we went to morning mass. And
Uh-huh.
he assisted that same priest that would ride my butt in catechism. And I yawned, and I didn't even know I yawned loudly.
Uh-huh.
So we got to the motorcycle. I'm putting my helmet on, and he goes, "Do you have to yawn loud like that?" And so he kind of reamed my butt for yawning loud because there's only a few people in mass at that
Mhm.
time of the morning.
Yeah.
And and I felt bad at the time. I think I even shed a few tears because he meant a lot to me. And I was sad. I was mad at myself actually for embarrassing him. But now that I think back on it, it's kind of funny. And I can hear myself,
Uh-huh.
you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I have never made noise when I yawn since that time. Every time I yawn, I think of that situation. It's just kind of funny. But yeah,
You know, and the thing is that's it. You know, I suppose we're all we all react to funny things in certain ways.
yeah, most definitely, don't we?
Yeah, exactly. You know, there's some things that are funny to me, but then they might not be funny to someone else. It could be, you know yourself, there's times where we have a little snigger, and sometimes it can be an inappropriate time, but sometimes we'll laugh through nerves, sometimes we'll laugh through, and it's just how we react, isn't it?
Yes, it
Really
is.
is. It really is. You know,
Yeah, and I'm happy I can laugh about it now because then it was not funny, you
uh-huh,
know. And,
yeah.
and and a lot of things in life are like that. When we're going through them, they're not so funny. And
Exactly.
sometimes even later, they're not so funny.
No, no, exactly. And that's the thing. Sometimes we've got to look back and look at times where things have been funny, but now we can look back and think that wasn't so funny. Why did I laugh for? But it's not
Yeah.
about being hard on myself. It's about just, you know, forgiving myself, accepting that, that that was how we understood things then, and now is a total different time. You know, it's
Yeah.
like when, it's like when I was younger, when I was a child, um, I used to, there was a derelict house beside where I lived. It had been a gas explosion, and I remember playing in this house, walking back and forwards along the beams in the ceiling because there was no floor and there was actually no ceiling. It was just the beams. And
Wow.
would I do that now? Definitely not. But at the time, I thought it was great. I thought it was funny,
Mhm.
and if one of my kids wants to do that now, I'd probably, you know, they probably wouldn't have it. They would have a very sore butt, probably, you know.
It freak you out because you know it could happen.
Exactly.
you
exactly.
know? And to you back then, it was just a game. And think of the agility and the balance it took, but it was still extremely dangerous with no safety net.
Exactly, exactly. And when we talk about safety nets and talk about dangerous and things like that, now I know that you've had a health battle
Ugh.
past. How did you cope with that? That's if you want to share. That's if you want to share.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Because, you talk about spirituality
Hmm.
and um this isn't a place where I had a falling out with
Hmm.
God, but I was frustrated because I couldn't figure out why now. I felt like, I still have a lot of life to live.
Yeah, yeah,
Why would you, give me a brain tumor and not enable me to speak because I was so passionate about speaking, Elaine.
yeah,
And I love to educate people. I love to captivate audiences. And I've taught fitness and I've spoken in front of crowds to certify fitness instructors. And, um, I've taught huge groups of fitness
hmm,
people and taught just about every fitness class there is.
hmm,
And couldn't walk, couldn't feed myself, couldn't speak, had seizures, had migraines, had this brain tumor. I'm like, you know,
it must have been so
why?
terrifying. It must have
It
been
it
so
was,
terrifying.
I just thought, how much more am I going to lose? How
Uh,
am I going to continue to live? Who's going to have to, what's my husband going to have to do to take care of me?
yeah,
That's, I didn't want to, if that was going to be the way I had to live, I didn't want that.
yeah,
Although he's an excellent caregiver and he'd do anything for me, that's the kind of man he
yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
I didn't want that for him.
Hmm.
And one day the tumor stopped growing, the seizures stopped. I still fight with the migraines, but I can do anything that I want now. The therapies they gave me in the hospital started the job, and then I got home and had in-home treatments, and he worked with me every single day.
Yeah,
Stay positive. We can do this. Look how far you've come. And I got back to normal. I
exactly.
worked hard. He wouldn't let me. When I got discouraged, he
Uh,
would not let me. He would put my
uh,
legs on the floor and hold me up and step
yeah.
after step after step, and then stare after stare after stare. And man, we did it. We did
And
it. And
would you say that being positive helped you get through it? Because it must have been,
oh, I
it,
would have never.
yeah, because it must have been
Go
frustrating.
ahead, Elaine.
It must have been frustrating. It must have been
Oh, it was.
even before you were diagnosed and you didn't know what was going on, why this was happening. It must have been so terrifying for you.
Oh, it was. Because in the beginning, you'd have this brain fog and
Uh-huh.
you'd start to forget, and I would start stuttering a little bit,
Mhm.
and my limbs would shake, and I'm like, what the heck is going
Yeah.
on? Because
Yeah.
I've been an athlete all my life and I've always had such great control of my body. you
Mhm.
know I just knew my body inside and out, and
And
these were not normal things for me.
can I just add, I've always found you
Mhm.
very articulate in how you speak. So to hear you say that you stuttered, and that you had brain fog and forgot things, you know, you now to you then, there must have been a massive change.
And that's what frustrated me the most, the inability to communicate.
Uh-huh.
And oh, I just, tears would just stream down my face.
Yes.
I At that point, when I was working with speech therapy, oh my goodness, I would pound the table and just bury my head. And she goes, don't worry. She
Uh-huh.
goes, I've seen people worse and they made it back.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
maybe not to normal. As soon as she said those words, maybe not to normal, I wasn't going to accept that. And then I thought that's when I got frustrated with God, maybe not to normal. And and I just couldn't believe he was going to take away the thing that I was most passionate about.
Yeah.
And I couldn't accept the fact that he wanted me to accept it whatever way he decided.
Hmm.
Because, sometimes we have to do that. Our spirits have to learn to accept it's his way, not your way.
Exactly.
And I wasn't ready for that.
Yeah.
And I didn't know. I didn't know if that was true yet or not.
Uh-huh.
You know, I hadn't given it everything that I had. I was still in the hospital, in the care of occupational therapy, physical
Yeah.
therapy, speech therapy, all of that.
Hmm. Hmm.
And my husband's one, you don't ever get up until there's nothing left to give.
Yeah. Hmm. And
And
and can I say I agree wholeheartedly with your husband. And me for one, I'm so thankful that you didn't give up because I find you, as I say, very articulate when you're talking, but I find you such a interesting person.
oh,
Interesting
thank
person. And pardon me, and to be fair, you know, I'm pleased that you didn't give up, because and also what is normal? What is normal?
you. I when I speak with some of my clients, I ask them that question. They go, I just want to get back to some kind of normal.
Yeah,
I go, what is normal?
yeah,
What is that anymore? And I don't know if this world's ever going to see normal as it was once defined.
exactly. And that's one thing. I remember, coming to the end of COVID, coming to the end of lockdown, I remember talking to a couple of people, and I remember them saying, I just want to get back to normal. And I said to them, I said, now this couple of people was taking part in Zoom calls with different things. They learned some different things. They were meeting different people from different countries. And what I said to them was, I says, what normal? Do you mean? Do you mean
There
not
you go.
using online, not talking to anyone outside of, your area, your local area? Are you talking about not making those long distance connections? Are you talking about not learning things that you've maybe been wanting to learn or you've had an interest in and then took the chance to Google what you can do online? Are you talking to that kind of normal? Because that kind of normal is a boring normal
Right.
where, you know, because of COVID, you've been opened up to all the learning you can do. You've been opened up to all the people that you can meet because the world is a massive big place.
Oh,
I was surprised at how many people, I was surprised at how many people's world ended there
right.
instead of there,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
you
It's
know,
astonishing.
I know.
Astonishing.
Yeah.
And I will be so real with you here
Hmm.
is that because I lived in Detroit, which is the airport is an international hub,
Yeah, yeah.
I was lucky that way. When they needed an instructor to go somewhere
Hmm.
outside of the US of A, I was a big choice because I was at an international hub.
Uh-huh.
But when I got sick, I was grounded,
Yeah, yeah.
obviously. But you know, especially when I got into the life coaching program where
Hmm.
I met you,
Yeah.
I have never met so many people from so many places.
Yes.
And I mean, countries I've never even heard of, Elaine.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and the cultures and the languages and how
mhm.
many languages one person can speak
Yeah.
and the talent they have. And oh my goodness,
Mhm,
it's just been so exciting.
mhm.
My whole world has opened up.
Exactly.
It's amazing.
Exactly. And I always think to myself, you know, before COVID,
Excuse me.
before COVID, I thought that I lived quite an adventurous life, or I had that, or I thought I had the mindset of being open to a lot of different things. But then COVID happened, and I realized that actually I was one of those that had the world ended there,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
I really, really give myself a shake up because
Me too.
I've always prided myself on taking an interest in different people's perspectives, different backgrounds, the areas where people live, the different, everything. I've always
Correct.
thought that I was a type of person that was like a sponge and always wanted to know more. But actually, COVID happened, and I realized that I was to a certain degree, but not as fully as what I actually was post COVID.
Yeah, I agree with you. I can say the same thing.
Yeah,
Yep, definitely.
yeah. And the thing is you mentioned the life coach in there. What is it? What is it that a transformational life coach does? You explain to me because I know what my ideas are. You tell
Hmm.
me what you do, and I know that many of the viewers would be interested as well. Because a lot of people, I put it down to certain countries. I think certain countries are more open to life coaching than others.
Right.
Some people call me coach, some people call us mentor, some people call us a teacher, answer to all of them. But in a sense, coaching, teaching, mentoring all comes in the same kind of ball,
It does. It
and
really does.
some people assume that a coach is a sports coach
Right.
because,
Right. Which is what I've been most of my life.
yeah,
Yeah.
right, right. What kind of sports did you coach, Bob?
Just about everything. See, because um, I started in respiratory therapy. I worked in the hospitals for 17 years,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I coached them on breathing exercises most of the time when they were well enough to do those things.
right.
Then insurances took over, and it was a numbers game. If you didn't see this number of patients
Yeah.
pulled in the office and giving warning
Mhm.
1, 2, 3, and then you were gone. So before I could get warning 1, 2, 3, I was gone. I said, I can't do this. And
Yeah.
the numbers were almost impossible to reach. You put patients 1 through 6 on treatments, you went back and took them off, and that's not caring for your patient.
No.
So then I went into fitness. I started coaching group exercise. Then I went into personal training and group exercise.
Mhm.
We opened 2 personal training studios, and that was my passion. And then we had a breach of contract,
Mhm.
and this trainer took 60% of the clients, and the bank wanted to lend us more money, and I
Yeah.
said, you know what, this is a deep dark hole, and I don't want to try to climb out of it. I just don't. Then we moved into the karate arena.
Mhm.
And again, we were coaching, teaching people. And my husband's so good with the kids.
Yeah.
And then COVID snatched that out. And that was too big of a hole. I
Yeah.
mean, he tried teaching, virtually. And, by that time, renting a building was astronomical,
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
and to heat the place and the electricity and all of that, it was crazy. And we were already retirement age,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I got sick shortly right after that. And that's when I didn't even know, really. I'd heard of life coaching, but I never saw that for myself. And then I saw something on Facebook, and I was standing up.
Mhm.
And that's when I got that spiritual push from behind. I mean, Elaine, I felt that push.
Yeah,
And they got my attention. That got my attention. And I said, okay, I felt it. I felt it.
exactly. And I was just going to ask you, people say things happen for a reason. Could you look back now? Because just listening to you, I would say that, as you said, you know, rents were just went through the roof.
Yeah,
Renting or leasing just was ridiculous. And I honestly believe that the majority of people who had to reroute their life due to COVID, I honestly believe that it's not that they were rerouting it, they were getting back on track and they were back to where they aim where they should be, if that makes sense.
it
As you
does.
said, you were a fitness coach, you worked in the medical profession, you worked, your husband worked in the karate arena, the martial arts.
Yes,
And then for you, there's quite a lot of diversity there.
yes.
And then for your condition to happen, when
Mhm.
a lot of things have been taken away from you, for that condition to happen, I'm not saying that it was a blessing that it happened far from it, but it must have, when you think about it, can you look back now and think it was maybe to learn from that it was somewhere to put your focus that was in a positive way. And I'm not saying that your condition was a positive thing, but what I mean is, beforehand, you are focused, you maybe might have been focused on the rising costs, things being taken away, things being stopped. So sometimes I believe that something has to happen for us to change our focus.
Yes, and sometimes it's drastic.
Yes,
It's his plan.
yes, exactly. And that's the thing. If we don't listen, and if we don't listen to our spirit, sometimes we get knocked on the back to take the time out to
Yeah.
say, I will listen. And as you said there, you felt that nudge, that push,
Hmm.
you know,
Yes, I did.
exactly.
I'll never forget it, ever. I have never, well, there was one other time I felt a physical change
Uh-huh.
from the Holy Spirit
Yeah. Yeah.
that God sent down to get my attention. And
Yeah.
this is a miraculous story. I want your listeners to hear this. And I've only told a few people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we had two miscarriages, and then we had a stillborn son. And my brother, who was a priest, happened to be home at that time, and he baptized him when we delivered him.
Mm-hmm.
But again, we didn't understand, you know.
Yeah.
And my husband and I were lying in bed together, just holding each other and crying. And we had this picture of this beautiful tiger on our wall.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, the tiger lights up. The orange stripes were so bright, Elaine. And it's like he was floating off the picture. And the same time, we were levitating off the bed.
Yeah.
And we both said, we're not on the bed. He goes, I know. And I go, you can't see the tiger, but I can. I said, he is lit up and off the wall. And we stayed like that. It felt like forever, but
Yeah.
it probably was 30 seconds maybe. And then we gently were set back down, and the tiger gently moved back to the picture, and everything returned to normal. But God was saying, one day you will understand. And he heard that, and I heard that.
Yeah.
And that was miraculous. He said, I have you in the palm of my hand. You will understand.
Yeah.
And those two things, that and when I felt that shove, it was so pronounced. I'm going to call it a shove.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those two encounters with the Holy Spirit. Oh my goodness, I will never forget. I got chills everywhere.
Well, you know,
Yes.
well, firstly, I'll say, I'm sorry for your loss. But, you know, when God makes his presence known, he does it in a way that speaks volumes,
Yes. Yes, he does. Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, again, can just listening to you, it kind of feels as though to me, as though he's been moving you gently while moving you speedily at the same time.
It does seem like that. It
Yeah.
really does.
So you got interested in the life coaching.
Mm-hmm. And now I'm just so passionate. And back to your question about transformational, what does that mean? And if you talk to someone who is degreed in behavioral science, psychology, any one of those that gives them what they call permission and the right to heal people, help people, guide people through a behavioral issue, no matter what that is.
Yeah.
They say they're the only true transformational coach. My opinion and everyone else's opinion, and I've read it in several articles.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say my opinion because that's all I can speak for. My opinion is when I am guided to help a client from above.
Yeah.
Because every time I help a client, Elaine, I don't come up with those words. They come from above. I am guided
I get
to
you.
say to that client what I say. I don't even plan for my sessions except I guide myself with knowledge on what I know. And then it always turns out okay. Sometimes miraculously so. But my definition of transformational is there will be, you will be, they will be transformed in some way every session, not just at the end of 12 weeks, 6 weeks, every session. Because, I'm sorry, I get really emotional. There are things leading up to the worry, the anxiety, the panic, the non-clinical, and I make sure I say that, non-clinical depression that come way before that. But they don't recognize the clues.
Yeah.
Or we always put ourselves last. We push ourselves off to help everyone else. And then we start the session. I never thought about that. I didn't know that feeling was contributing. I didn't know that was the beginning. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
So, and even my daughter, I love her so much. She's one of those licensed people. She works for the state. And she hates that I'm doing this because in her eyes, she's licensed. She has 3 master's degrees and is working on a PhD.
Yeah.
And how can I know what I'm talking about? And why do I have the right?
Yeah.
So,
and I'm gonna just say this, what does give you the right? Well, in my opinion, the the way that you can help people gives you the right, because
Amen.
the knowledge that you've got through your life, the knowledge that you've got through the learning, all builds up and helps someone else. So
Yes.
you've got the right. And you know, at the end of the day, you're coming from the heart. You're coming from the heart.
Hopefully they felt that through this program. I can hardly contain it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I have made sure, Elaine, I have made sure that I have gotten certifications,
Uh-huh.
you know, to not only enhance what I know,
Hmm.
but to enhance what the public perceives
Yes.
that I know.
Yes.
Because I believe in that. I
Yeah.
think there needs to be some kind of stamp.
Hmm.
That's my belief. That's what I put on myself.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's been proven that some of the best life coaches don't have that even. It's
Exactly.
life experience
Hmm.
that is the wonderment and the miracle worker here.
Yes. And you know, and I'm going to share this with you. You know, I went to university many years ago for social work to become a social worker. And sat and I said to the tutor this day, I said, I'm going to leave the program. I'm going to leave, you know. And she asked, why? And I said, because I'm sat here in this class, I says, and I'm hearing some people say that they've been mentors. I'm hearing some people say that they are mentors to disabled adults, mentally challenged adults. I'm hearing people saying that they've been carers to, you know, to children who need that extra support. I says, and I'm sitting here and I've done nothing. And she spoke to us and it made so much sense. She said, Elaine, she says, you got life experience. I said, but what life experience have I got? And she said, well, you've got children, you've married, and you know, this, that, and the other. And I was like, well, yeah. And it took us a while. It took us a moment to realize that we all have knowledge of life, but sometimes we don't recognize it. And so what I did was, you know, I know that you can't see it, but behind me screen at the back here, you know, that's when I decided to do my certificates for my benefit. It wasn't so I could say to people I'm certified. It was so that I could push out the imposter syndrome that was coming in, you know, and so I could just say to myself, I'm not an imposter. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm saying. I know that it works. I'm certified.
Yes.
That was for me. That was for
Yes,
me,
absolutely.
you know?
Absolutely. Well said.
You know,
Yes.
and the thing is, so, you know, so why shouldn't you? You've got the knowledge.
Yeah.
You've got the knowledge. You've got, you know, when you were doing everything that you were doing, your fitness coach and everything, you know, the respiratory, all of them, the chances are you would have probably had some diploma, certificates, and everything that you did. So you actually are certified. And you've probably got more certifications than a lot of people because everything that you do all adds to your coaching. And it makes no difference whether it's one certificate or whether it's 21 certificates.
Correct.
You've got the certificates, you know.
Yes. And because of the registry or the registered respiratory therapist and all the medical stuff, the people with medical issues are very comfortable
Mhm.
because I know, their medications, their blood pressure stuff,
Yeah.
their respiratory meds, their heart meds.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you how many times that has helped, you
Yeah.
know.
Mm-hmm.
And when I used to personal train, part of their initial profile was taking their blood pressure. I can't tell you how many times we have found high blood pressure and saved lives.
Oh, huh.
It's amazing because
Well,
that's
you
the
know,
silent killer.
exactly. You know, I had to have my blood pressure taken a couple of weeks ago, and they took it 3 times. And every time they took it the first time and said it's fine. And then I was kind of moved on to a different ward, and then they took the blood pressure. Said, oh, we'll have to do that again because they're on the high side. And my mind automatically thought, high blood pressure. I don't have high blood pressure. I wonder why it's gone up. And I did say, I did ask the nurse, I says, could that be because I've walked from that ward to this ward? Could it be that,
Could
I
be.
had a lot of pain going on? Could it be that I've been feeling a bit, excuse me, a little bit stressed, thinking I'm going to be admitted into hospital when I don't really have time to come into hospital? Could it be that? And they said, well, it could be a few different things. Anyway, they took me blood pressure. I think they might have took it another couple of times, and it was fine. It was fine. But high blood pressure is, you know, it's a killer. It's a killer.
There's nothing to play around with, nothing at all. But
Exactly.
no, you're so right. I mean, life experience and people, they don't give it enough credit because it hasn't been talked about enough.
Exactly.
That's all it is.
Exactly. Yes. Because I think, and I don't think this is down to country. I think this is just, I don't know whether it's down to the generations or what, but, go back a good few years in my life, there was a lot of things, like so my husband, he's been gone for 17 years. Now, when I look back to those times, I seen that I looked to it that I was just getting on with it. And I
Yeah,
didn't give myself enough credit for what I was actually dealing with. And I didn't
yeah,
see that that was personal growth, spiritual growth. I didn't see that it was life knowledge
right, right.
because I was just getting on with it,
Yeah,
you know?
right. We don't often see that. Yeah, because you're just doing what you have to do.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Where I think I think now, um, I think now, I think a lot of people of the younger generations are now listening to ask for help, ask for help, where, in probably, me and you are probably around about the same age. And
Yep,
in our generation, excuse me, it wasn't really the done thing to ask for help.
right.
It was just get on with it.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
go with
you,
it.
you made your bed, you lay in it, you've got this going on, deal with it. So I don't think that that's down to country. I think that's down to generational.
Yeah,
I think that's down to generational. But now, thankfully, I'm going to say thankfully, for me, I think the generations now, the younger generations are now the ones that are realizing that asking for help, it's a sign that they want to be strong.
yeah.
Whereas
Okay.
before, it was just put that face on and be strong, even though we're crumbling on the inside,
Yes,
or we're kind of hitting breaking point on the inside, you know, where this generation now, thankfully, they know to ask for help. So,
right.
and I think that's, again, I don't think that's down to a country. I think that is down to generations.
Yeah, and I think you're right. And I had never thought of it that way. So I'm glad you brought that
Yeah.
up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, wow, that's really eye-opening for me.
Yeah.
Thank you. Elaine.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
definitely.
Welcome.
Definitely. I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah. So, getting back to transformational coaching, what kind of if I came to you, what kind of changes would you help someone with? What kind of transformations would you help people with?
I work with anyone, but my focus right now is solopreneurs, mompreneurs.
Hmm.
People don't understand that a household is a business.
Yeah.
And if a mom is trying to run a business, let's just say on Etsy, let's just take that for an example,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it gets bigger than they thought.
Hmm.
All
Hmm.
right. And they're already stressed.
Hmm.
Maybe they have a couple small ones running around, and
Yeah.
it's very difficult to divide their attention equally as it needs to be to do the business properly and give the children the care they need. Number one, to keep them safe, keep them fed, keep them
Hmm.
entertained, keep them learning the way we want to. We want to educate them from very young. Most
Yeah.
successful parents do.
Yeah.
And let's face it, do we get any training for parenting or being a good wife or being a good household runner? No.
Okay.
So normally, if not both, one of the entities has to suffer. And then comes the overwhelm, the worry,
Hmm.
the anxiety, and on and on and on.
Yeah.
So what I like to do is before that begins to advance is bring them in,
Hmm.
help them to realize what's going on
Hmm.
and then how to deal with that.
Yeah.
And then give them a plan. I don't want them to need me forever. I
No.
want to teach them
Hmm.
what's going on, how to break it down, give them the plan, and then teach them how to institute the plan.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah.
And then once we have all that laid down, we'll do a couple week check in and then maybe once a month. And then after they have it, then they can just call me when they need me.
Hmm.
But let's not let it, get to a point where it's affecting your life, it's affecting your marriage. You don't feel like you're good at anything. And then you reach that point where you're having the panic attacks, or you're feeling depressed. Let's not let it get to that point.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, let's not let it get to the point where you're calling the psychologist or you're thinking about medication.
Yeah.
So much we can do before that.
Yeah.
So much.
Uh-huh. So if anyone wants to reach out, they can contact you. I will put the link in the description. Um,
Sure.
but I know that you're on Facebook, so people can reach out to you, and you obviously do work online as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Everything right now
Thankfully,
for me has been virtual,
yeah.
even though I do have an office for local people
Uh-huh.
right here in my home.
Hmm.
Hmm. And it's
And
beautiful and it's private.
exactly, and the thing is, you know, wherever anyone is in the world can reach out.
Yeah.
Thankfully, thankfully to the power of COVID.
I know, right?
I mean that in a nice way. I mean that in a nice way. COVID wasn't good at the time, but we had to kind of think on our feet because
Yes.
otherwise, the world was going to come to a standstill in more ways than what it did.
Yes.
And it
Yes.
did. And I find that, I'll be honest with you, you know, going into COVID, a lot of people were talking about looking within, looking within.
Hmm.
They did. But then after COVID, this is the way that I've noticed it. In COVID, we went into COVID and a lot of people started looking within. Now, we started to come out of COVID and people, I would maybe say, I was going to say it's probably about 50-50, but I think I would put it at 70-30 or 60-40 of people that stop looking within. And I think where we are now is, and this is just my observations, through people that I speak to and things like that. There's a lot of people who are, I would say a high percentage of people now who maybe stop looking within, whose emotions are starting to come out
Mhm.
and they're being affected by the emotions,
Yes.
and they're starting to suppress a lot of things as well. Because, when we talk about a transformation can happen in any way,
Yes.
and thankfully, you can help people with all of those transformations. In COVID, I'm not too sure whether it was like this in the US. It probably was, but I know here in the UK, we went through a cycle of house updates, decorating, gardening, doing anything that we could at hand to decorate, to freshen the place up because we're on the same four walls day in and day out. And then, and in the UK, officially it was where you could leave your house for an hour a day. Now, a lot of people started going out on cycles, a lot of people started jogging, a lot of people started walking. I wasn't one of those. And that is the only regret that I have about COVID is that I didn't take the time because a lot of my friends, and again, I mean this in a nice way, a lot of my friends took the time to do exercises every day. Go in the garden and do exercises, jog on the spot, take advantage of being able to go out and go to, parks and have a jog and things like that. I didn't. So a lot of my friends before COVID, they were a little bit chunkier. Then after COVID, when I seen them, I was like, where has all the meat gone off your bones? you know, but I'm not going to say it's a massive big regret, but that's one of the things that I wish that I'd done through COVID, that I'd focused a little bit more on my physical self. But that isn't in an egotistical way. That was just, because we all want to try and live longer. We all want
Yeah.
to, so you help with all of that.
Well, yeah, and that's a really good point because these emotions, if
Uh-huh.
we continue to house them,
Mhm.
they will present as ailments within our physical self. They'll
Yes.
show up usually in the stomach, they'll show up as headaches, they'll show up as joint aches,
Yeah.
and it just snowballs from there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
all of our bodies have vulnerable areas
Hmm.
that when we are emotionally not well, they will show up in those vulnerable areas.
Yeah. And that's an extremely valid point because the amount of people as well that since COVID, the amount of people that have, again, in the UK, and I know that this would have been in the US and every country as well, there was a lot of operations cancelled here, waiting lists kind of were non-existent while they were dealing with people who were passing with COVID. Now, after lockdown ended and they started catching up on everything, the amount of people that it was like a double-edged sword because I've got a few friends in the medical professions, and some of them told me that waiting lists had gone down because the amount of people that had decided, actually, I don't really need this treatment. I don't really need this surgery. I don't really need that. It's needless. So a lot of people kind of, cut themselves off from the um healthcare that they thought that they needed.
Yeah.
But then on the other side, a lot of people were healing themselves because they were going within, they were looking at themselves, they were looking at past traumas, everything, and a lot of things were being healed,
Mhm.
and can I share this with you, Bob?
Of course.
Now, when my husband was diagnosed with cancer, my father was diagnosed 3 months after my husband. And, unfortunately, what happens when there's a diagnosis or a terminal illness or anything like that, that's usually followed by a family fallout. And some of my husband's family couldn't deal with the fact that they were going to lose their brother. So there was some nasty things being said, accusations, all sorts. And it's to do with, it's a mix of guilt and everything. Now, at that time, so my husband was one of 13. So
Wow.
I had what, 26? I would say I had what, 20, 21 um brother-in-laws, sister-in-laws,
Wow.
extended family,
Yeah.
50 plus nieces and nephews, all of that. Now, and we'd always been, there were certain ones in his family who would have days out with things like that. And my kids were only young at the time, so they'd been used to going and seeing aunties and uncles, going and seeing aunties, cousins, and then everything stopped because of petty jealousies.
Uh,
Because of petty jealousies. And, and it saddens me to say that it wasn't just on their behalf, it was my behalf as well. Because, it was upsetting me, things that was being said. It was upsetting them, the fact that I'd kind of had to accept that he was terminal and that he was never going to be healed. He was one of five, I think 5 or 6 people at the time in the UK that had this certain kind of cancer. And then to lose me, to have my dad diagnosed, and then 7.5 weeks later, my dad passed. So I was being strong for my mom, and it's right. People say what they want to say. And a lot of them thought that I was just not bothered because I was trying to deal with it and I was just trying to keep things right for the kids. Now, so unfortunately, there was a lot of things, being said and upset feelings and everything. Now, interestingly enough, at that time, I went from having a lot of family around us, mine included, to having no one around us except my mum. So I went from massive big support to nothing
oh,
because my mum was still dealing with the loss of my dad.
yes.
So I was still supporting her. Now, at that time, my back gave way.
Oh no.
My back gave way. I had 3 prolapsed discs. I was
Oh,
in and out of hospital. My son and my daughter, my son was 10 and my daughter was 16. And sometimes they were my son would sometimes have to help us fasten my bra because my arms wouldn't work and
oh.
my legs wouldn't work. And sometimes I would have to be rolled off the bed to stand up and things like this. Now, as you rightly say, with emotions, store somewhere. The store somewhere. And I don't know whether you've read Louise Hay's book, Heal Your Life and Heal Yourself. And
No.
it's all about how, so for example, as you said before, emotions to do with how it can come out in different areas like digestion, you know. And one thing that I read at that time was your spine. It's your backbone. It's
Yes.
your full support of your skeleton. And at times where there's no support, or you feel as though there's no support, that's when you get niggles and that's when your back goes. And at that time, for me, I had no support whatsoever. I had a couple of friends, but they couldn't support us in the way that I'd needed support.
Yeah.
So because my support went, my back went. And then after, and I'm going to be honest and say, that went on for a long time. And not only that, but I was also told that I was looking at an operation on my back, and I would be 50-50 whether I was going to be in a wheelchair for the rest of my life because my back was so bad. And I was only, what was I? At the time, I think I was 40 at the time. And this was like when he'd been diagnosed and through the years after that. And I didn't want an operation. I was too young to
Mm-mm.
have an operation. I didn't have the time to have an operation. I had a husband who was in hospital having surgeries. I had two kids to look after. I didn't have time. But
Mhm.
thankfully, what I did was I meditated with the intention of letting go. I actually meditated with the intention to heal, to give myself to release the natural pain relief, and it was the only way that I could get pain relief. So I did that. And then what happened was, after my husband passed, there was a lot of resentment from both sides, and I couldn't move forward. And I started having hip trouble.
Oh,
And
shoot.
again, if you look at the body, the hips are meant to move. So I was having, I started getting sciatica, I had hip trouble, I had all of that. And I really set about my intention to heal. And every day I would meditate with the intention to let go, meditate to forgive, meditate all different things. And I'd been under the hospital under the neurology for quite a long time. And this time I went in, I went in and I remember the neurologist had said, Elaine, what have you been doing? And I said, oh, I've been meditating. And he said, right. I says, I haven't done anything wrong, have I? He says, no. He says, but he says, if you're walking like that, the next time I'm going to discharge you. Because gradually I was letting go of those energy blocks in my spirit.
Oh, yes. Very good.
So as it happens, the next time I went, I was discharged. And for me, that again shows me the power of positive thinking, the power
Yes.
of our spirit, because I didn't want to be like that. I didn't want to be like that,
Amen.
you know.
Yep.
So it is, so when people don't realize the power of transformation. They
They
really
don't.
don't.
And I use so much meditation and imagery in my sessions, and
Yeah.
it is magical, you know,
Uh-huh.
and it's not as long of a process as people think
Hmm.
to alter the way you think. It
Exactly.
really isn't.
Exactly. And and one thing that I find is, you know, we're all meditating our own way. But
Correct.
sometimes I find that having someone to support you while you're meditating, or someone to sound off at, someone to share what you've gone through so that they can put fresh eyes on it, so
Yeah.
that they can give a fresh insight on it, makes all the difference. And it can make the transformation a lot quicker,
Yes, it sure can.
you
It's
know?
amazing because, like you say, those fresh eyes,
Mhm.
they put or can even put a
Mhm.
different interpretation to it,
Ex-
something that the other person doesn't never even thought of or totally didn't see it that way.
Exactly.
And you've done that, I don't know how many times.
Uh-huh.
I mean, you know,
Yeah.
it's just amazing. And I think that is really one of the underlying and true values
Hmm.
of transformational coaching, really any life coaching industry, but transformational coaching, most definitely.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
And and I would definitely say to people, if you were watching this today and anything that Bob has said has spoke to you, contact her, because you never know what the power of change, the power of transformation, how it can serve you and how it can benefit you as well. Because it's not just about the transformation at this moment, it's about what can be the transformation for 6 months, for 6 weeks, for 6 days. And then it's,
Yes,
that transformation, how long it's going to serve you again.
that's right. And
You know,
Elaine, the I call it the Essence Call because that's the name. The Essence Studio is the name of the company. And we all have that essence about us, right?
Mhm.
So come into the studio. The first call, God bless you. The first call is absolutely complimentary. It costs you nothing to have a conversation and see if we can work together. Absolutely nothing.
Exactly.
So I
Exactly.
I'm so passionate. Yeah, I would love to just have a conversation with
Mhm.
anyone.
So you heard it here. You can have an essence call with Bob, whether it's online or whether it's in person. Reach out,
Yeah,
and she's there to talk to you. And I am going to be dropping the link into the description. But anyone that wants to reach out to her on Facebook, Barb Kane. She's also got a Facebook group as well. So, reach
yeah,
out, because you never know how she can help you and what difference it can make having, someone in your corner, someone in your corners that's able to put those eyes, fresh eyes, onto something that you're going through. And
right.
I'm sure that anyone listening would love to be able to overcome, achieve an outcome or a transformation a little bit speedier than what you might do on your own. So
Absolutely.
I'm going to say, Bob, it's been an absolute pleasure. I really, I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I hope that you'll join us again. I'm going to call this part one,
Oh,
because
yeah.
I feel, I know that you've got so much um insights, so many insights, and can I say, long may it rain. And I love the color of your hair as well.
Oh, thank you, Elaine.
Love the color of your hair.
Thank you. I
So,
love you.
well, I love you and I appreciate you as well. So I'm going to call this part one. And then,
Super.
so anyone that's watching, reach out to Bob, reach her on Facebook, because you never know how she can help you. How she can help you.
I'm here,
I'm
guys.
going to say thank you,
Oh,
Bob.
thank you, Elaine.
Thank you,
Very
Bob.
fun.
So thank you everyone for joining in this episode of Spiritual Stuff uh, and Fluff. And, always remember, keep your spirit light and your laughter loud, because it will get you everywhere, everywhere that you want to go. So I'll say bye for now. See you all soon. Bye for now.